Hey, all right. Hey, how's it going? Hello, hello, hello. Hey, how's it going? Andrew here for Cat Skull Gaming. It is the weekly Dev Diary, and we're going what we have done this week in our video game, Project Dice Battle Person. I know that's a bit of a mouthful. So, what have we been working on? Well, Dayton's been working on coding up the first system to get things going, so you can start moving things around in the world state. We are having a meeting on Sunday this week instead of Saturday or Friday, so I don't have any updates since last week because we haven't spoken that much. But he's been hard at work at that, so I'm really excited to see his progress. Unfortunately, Jim is dealing with some life situations, so he is kind of out of pocket, I think is the term. Uh, um, so I haven't heard from him on what he's been up to because he's, taking care of himself and his life. And then there's me. And so I know what I've been doing because I've been doing it. I've been working on art stuff. Having Dayton there to take on the coding pillar of game development has freed me up to think about the art side. And so I've been working in Blender, trying to think about what exactly do we need. This is just a dice face kind of a dice face a test to see how the style would work. And this is a style I kind of headed to once I did a bunch of different tests and decided that pixel art is possible. I know what pixel art looks like. I know that there are pipelines that would allow me to do a 3D to, excuse me, that would do a 3D to a 2D transition. There are pipelines out there that I could use. There's programs out there that will take a 3D model, that animation, and pixelize it in a pretty decent job. That I could then render out animations as sprite sheets and use that as a pipeline to create pixel art for the game. The problem with that is there's a preconceived stigma with indie games and pixel art. And there's also a level of like people know what good pixel art looks like, and I don't have experience doing good pixel art. So I would be most likely doing okay to bad pixel art, if I'm being perfectly honest, at least at the start, and probably not until, partway through the process, after having learned all the different foibles and getting feedback, then would I actually be able to really kind of put something out there that would probably be of a quality for a commercial product. And that is not something that excites me. Fighting that pixel art stigma of like indie game uses pixel art because it doesn't have art design, kind of not aesthetic, but that mentality, that stigma. I don't want to fight against that, and I don't have any reason to use pixel art. Well, I do. Readability at a small scale is one of the things that pixel art does really well. You can have these big, chunky things out of pixels, and you can use high contrast because of the color palette and the saturation of it in those, earlier pixel styles, and it would give you something that reads, pretty small on the screen. You can tell what Mario is, and he's only 8 pixels tall. So readability is something that I do like about pixel art, but I am looking for another style, and this cut paper kind of flat style with like cast shadows, I find this very attractive. It also has a bit of readability. And so I was working on different tests, here's another test I did. Obviously, these things only work if your camera is perfectly situated, because when you start moving the camera left and right, it skews the image. But this kind of skewing is actually one of the things that I like about this style is, you can build in this kind of juice where you get a little shake or shimmy. And using that kind of shake or shimmy, you can get this cool parallaxing effect. Also, just trying to do, hey, what does a character look like? A quick test of what that looks like. So this is what I've been working on. The thing that drew me to this kind of style, it's kind of based on the corporate aesthetic. If you've seen those like corporate handouts or even commercials where they have that like flat kind of vector art style. I like it because, one, visual readability at both a large scale, you can zoom in because it's a flat vector image. It still reads pretty decently. You can also zoom out and it has decent readability as well. So, if we put that dice face on a dice and I back out, our pips, can't read our pips, but that doesn't matter. But when we get close enough to read the pips, even here, right, visually we can tell what's going on here. We can see, hey, oh, that's the heart moon dice. So having that kind of visual clarity, simplifying down the design so that we have that kind of visual clarity, is something that I've really been working. Because if we go back to this one, this doesn't show up, like all this detail, all these little things, they don't really show up on the dice face unless you're really zoomed in. Excuse me. Unless you're really zoomed in, you can't really see it. And so doing all that detail doesn't really make sense unless when the player is picking and choosing when they're previewing, this kind of high level of detail or higher level of detail is readable. So it's next week's interrogation. We'll be working on making a bunch more faces, putting them onto a 3D object, rolling the 3D object in Godot space, and seeing how that looks. I think this style has a lot of promise. When I talk to Dayton tomorrow, I'll get his feedback. But because it is this kind of flat layered effect, you get an interesting. It's interesting as well as easy for me to mentally just like design and execute. I don't have to think too hard about like, oh, how these layers fit together and how they like fit in the world space to create the various effects. Ooh, 1 second. Hello, this is Andrew.